somebody who was there at the founding of Africans Rising in 2016, 2017, I have to say, as you can see, I got some gray hair here, so I'm not a young guy. And when we set it up, our vision was that we wanted to create a movement that will unite people across the continent, and for this movement to be led by young people. So to see us here, less than 10 years since our launch, thriving, growing, having a good perspective and so on, is very, very inspiring to me. So what we are doing here over the 3 days at what we call the All Africa Movements Assembly, which is the second time that we're hosting it with that frame. 2 years ago was the first time in Arusha, Tanzania, is really about giving momentum to the idea that Africa's future is best secured by seeking the maximum social, economic, and political integration of our continent. Some of us who were in the founding of Africans Rising years ago, almost 2 decades ago, when Europe adopted the euro, we said, hey, if Europe can have a euro, why can't Africa have an afro? And we're not talking about the beautiful hairstyle, we're talking about one common currency. And many people laughed at us at that point and said, that's impossible and all of that. But now you see that even the African Union is having conversations around a common currency. If you look at the European Union as an example, they confronted a reality where individual European states, which are much more economically powerful than any African state is, they realized that there was no way they could compete with the US, no way they could compete with China, Brazil, India, if they didn't come together and unite and to have a bloc that could engage with the world. That's what we need, but we need more than that. We also need leaders on our continent that put the interests of our people, and particularly the poor, first, not simply the interests of their families, their friends, and their own egotistic reasons. Unfortunately, on our continent, we can't paint all the African leaders with the same brush, but there are far too many leaders who have been in power for far too long, and they cling on. I mean, we've got, for example, in Equatorial Guinea and in Cameroon, for example, leaders who've been in power for more than 30 years. If they were good enough to be leaders 30 years ago when they were much younger, in their 30s and 40s, why is it not to be understood that young people today who better understand the world, better understand what we need in the future, why should they not be qualified for leadership? The important point also is our continent is a very young continent, meaning that you look at the demographic profile, we have the majority of our people on the continent are young, right? They are under 35 years old. Now, how can we have that as the profile of the people on the continent, but have a leadership that looks older and older all the time? The other issue is we have to look at how difficult it is for us to move within the continent. So up to today, we're still burdened by the colonial legacy of, if you are flying sometimes from one West African country to another West African country, you might still have to go to Paris, catch a connecting flight to come back, right? Crazy things like that are within our capability to solve.